I get choked up with that song and the person singing it, because I do. You see a mother love her children to Jesus and carry another one in spite of the difficulties that brings, and you realize what it means to be like Jesus, and I'm very grateful for Elizabeth. But enough of that. My sister's in town with us this weekend, Brianna Heidemann, and she's been married now about a year and a half, somewhere in there, and I'm grateful for her. I was trying to think of my best memory of Bri, and honestly, as kids, we didn't really jive as much. It was probably more me than it was her. You probably have a relationship with that. I mean, I was a knucklehead. I was Jack, okay? Not entirely. We've been talking. He kind of takes after our big brother some, but I was trying to think of my best memory, and I finally thought of something, and it was actually thought of the same thing when I was about 11 or 12, so she's probably about 8 or 9. We made a Star Wars film, and I was Ben Skywalker, obviously, and she was Princess Leia, and it was just real corny. You know, it wasn't going to top any charts, but it was a great time. It's a good memory. But she's in full-on aunt mode. Got Jack his first set of Legos the other day, and she even brought home some chocolate milk, and so that's really good. But I wonder if you can picture an ice-cold glass of chocolate milk. That just seems like the thing to have around when the family's around, you know. It was always the thing our grandpa Springer would get us. Man, what is my deal today? If you can picture an ice-cold glass of chocolate milk, and it's quite a refreshing thing. It's a comforting thought, really. You know, it's the good stuff. And you fill it up, and then you fill yourself up, because chocolate milk just does that. And then maybe, if you want to, you share a little bit with someone else. I pray Jesus comforts your weary heart with the good stuff today. And I pray that His wonderful words of life fill your soul. And I pray that what you have in Him so fills and overflows you that you're ready to pour it into the lives of others. We've been looking at this refreshing work that He does, how His plan is to fill up ordinary men with Himself and send them out, those ordinary men, to fill up others, and He would meet their needs along the way. And in many ways, the rest of Matthew chapter 10, this pre-op training, if you will, was talking about the field, how to engage the people of Israel, what to expect, how to navigate that. So we'll back up. Our text is verses 11 through 15, but we're going to back up a little bit to verse 5 and read from there. These 12 Jesus sent forth and commanded them, saying, "Go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any of the Samaritans enter ye not." Jesus wasn't being racist by any stretch of the imagination. He just simply had a focused mission to the house of Israel, verse 6. Go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And obviously He would later reach out to those others, and He showed compassion to others along the way, but He came to rescue His people and from there do the work. So the apostles were to go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And as ye go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out devils. Freely ye have received. Jesus had freely given them the power to do this, so freely give. Provide neither gold nor silver nor brass in your purses, your wallets, nor scrip for your journey. Don't take a backpack with you. No, don't take an extra coat, neither shoes, nor yet staves, which be walking staff. For the workman is worthy of his meat. The laborer deserves to eat. How would they eat? Well, he kind of explains that here. Verse 11. And into whatsoever city or town ye shall enter, inquire. It's like investigate. Search out diligently. In fact, it's the same Greek word used when Herod told the wise men to go search diligently for the Christ child so that he could come worship Him too. Go all over the place and find Him. It's that word. So inquire who in it is worthy, who will receive you. And there abide. You're going to stay with them till ye go thence. They're going to take care of you. Well, how do you go about figuring out who's worthy? When you come into a house, salute it. Okay, a salutation, a greeting. We'll talk more about this a little bit. And if the house be worthy, let your peace come upon you. They had this thing that say, peace be upon this house. And if it be not worthy, if they don't receive you, let your peace return to you. So if they receive you, say, God bless you. If they don't, keep it to yourself. That's what he's saying. Verse 14. And whosoever shall not receive you, nor hear your words, when you depart out of that house or city, shake off the dust of your feet. Verily I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city. These men were headed to people who knew God, but these men were headed to people who desperately needed Jesus. And we're being challenged to go to our people in need. New men for Noonan is our prayer. To plant churches across the state of Georgia is our vision, and America needs the gospel. America needs Jesus. You say, well, wait a minute. America already knows Jesus. They've heard our message. They've had their door knocked. Most people in Georgia and the South already know Jesus. Just look at their t-shirt. Who else feels this way? Anyone else feel like that? Well, we need to address it. And it's a simple thing to do, to inquire if it's true. And it's a serious matter if they really do or do not. And so this morning, let's consider, but America already knows Jesus. But America already knows Jesus. I'm going to ask my good friend Richard Hawk if you'd pray for the message.
Holy Father, Lord, I come to you now, thanking you for this day you've given us, and Lord, the chance to be in your house to worship you. I ask, Lord, that you'd lift us up, strengthen us. Lord, help us to realize how simple it is just to follow you. Lord, lead us. I know you do. I pray that you just help us to follow. And Lord, help us to reach others, even today. That today is the only day we're given. So I ask that you'd help us to reach others today. There be one soul here that's lost. Help them to come to know you today. Because we're not guaranteed tomorrow. Lord, bless Pastor as he brings your word according to your will. For it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
I appreciate it. My sister lives in the Pacific Northwest, Washington State. Some would call it liberal land or fruit and nut land. But I see it as the coffee capital of the world. And you can ask her about it. You know, here in the South, there's a church building or a chicken house on every corner. And up in the Pacific Northwest, there's a coffee shop on every corner. And in every parking lot, there's espresso stands everywhere. It's mind-boggling. In fact, I don't know if it was in Washington State or if it was in Canada, but the two highest-grossing Starbucks coffee shops on the face of the planet were across the street from each other up in that neck of the woods at one point in time. People up there take their coffee seriously. Now, I know some of you don't drink coffee, and that's okay. They probably indulge in other drinks, too. Unfortunately, there's plenty of vineyards in the Pacific states, and so that's becoming more and more of a thing. And they like their, you ready? Pop. They like their pop. And I'm still sure popular up there. But isn't it interesting that people still recognize they need water if they're going to live? I read some stat that most American adults only drink half of the recommended amount of water they should daily, of the 8 to 10 glasses of, not a little glass, an 8-ounce glass of water. But that being said, bottled water is still the second most popular commercial beverage in the United States, second to soda pop. And people may not drink it as much as they should, but at least they know they should. You know, I've got some water up here. If you want some, there's some in the refrigerator. Help yourself. We got some baby bottles right now. Sam's Club tricked me, but they work. Anyways. But nothing has changed the fact that our bodies are made up of about 60% water, and so we have a great need for water. Water may not be as popular as it once was in the days of drinking it out of the hose in the backyard, But it doesn't change the fact that people still need it. America's desire for Jesus has changed. And when I talk about Jesus, I'm talking about the Jesus of the Bible. The Jesus who is, in fact, the King of the universe. Who is Lord of all. Jesus, God's one and only Son. Who is the only way to God. Who only could die for our sins and be buried and rise again and provide a way to know God. Jesus who calls all men to himself to find rest. Jesus who calls believers his body and who calls disciples to gather as the church. This is Jesus. And Jesus is not as popular as he was in the days of door-to-door living water sales. You ask someone today, you know Jesus? And you almost expect, yeah, I know Jesus, as they gulp down a beer. So what does that really mean? Do people really know Jesus? Do we take that answer at face value? The Catholic who says, yeah, I know Jesus, what do we do with that? The Mormon who says, yeah, I know Jesus, what do we do with that? The Muslim who says, this happened last week to us, yeah, I know Jesus, what do we do with that? Well, America already knows Jesus. Or do they? I know this, that while the United States of America may not seem to want Jesus, we know. And so this is what that does to us. We get fearful about sharing him. And we get concerned with what people think. And we get uncomfortable with their discomfort. And we get trigger shy with the gospel message. Even when a deer walks right in our sights, we just can't quite pull the trigger. We get trigger shy with this message, and we fail to just have conversations to dig a little deeper and see what someone really means when they say, I know Jesus. America's appetite for him has changed, but let me ask you, has their need for him changed? Water is not as popular, but our bodies still need it. And Jesus is not as popular, but our souls still need him. There is more to you than just a body. There is more to me than just a body. The main part of who you are as a person is your soul that will live forever somewhere. Bri and I were at a store the other day, and I asked the lady, she was talking about a death or something, I think. I'm not exactly sure. And I said, well, what's going to happen then? She was saying she was going to be turned to ashes. I said, well, what then? What about that? Well, hopefully I'll come back as a cat. And I told her, well, I tell you what, if you kick the bucket before me and I see you, I'll pet you, because I'll still be me. All right? We've got to ask ourselves, we've got to ask people, why do they believe what they believe? Because some people have weird ideas that they get from the east side of the world, the eastern hemisphere, that have no basis in evidence, no basis in reality. We've got to know why we believe what they believe. We've got to explore why they believe what they believe so that we can figure this thing out and help people realize there's more to you than a body. Your life's more than just working a job and paying your bills and dying so you can one day come back as a cat. There's more to your life than that. You're a soul, you're a living soul, and you will either have a relationship with God and the people that are with him forever, or you will not. So we have to believe, believers, with all of our hearts that Jesus is the living water. And we have to believe that he is still just as wonderful to the heart and believable to the mind as he's ever been for Americans. He is still the need of every person in America. So maybe you wonder, how do I navigate getting Jesus to those who want him? Because many Americans don't want anything to do with him, but hopefully there's still Americans who may talk to me about him. So how do I get Jesus to those who want him? Well, let's see what we can learn from Jesus' lessons to the 12 here. Remember, Jesus sent the 12 to Israel, to their people. And his command was tell the truth. And he fully expected mixed responses to him. And so he taught them, here's basically how to navigate getting me to those who want me. Here's a simple plan for outreach to approach this thing. Here are my thoughts on how to go with the gospel. So his first thought is this: go to the right person. Go to the right person. Look at verse 11. If you back up a bit, remember, he gives them the ability to heal, and he gives them the commission to go and preach and heal, and the healing would be evidence that he was who he said he was, and the message was legitimate, and they were to do this in the end of verse 8 freely. They weren't to charge people for it. They were to freely give it to others. And in fact, guys, don't even take extra stuff for your journey because you deserve to be fed. You're doing my work and you deserve to be fed. Well, how exactly would they do that, as we pointed out in verse 11? You're going to, into whatsoever city or town you shall enter, whether it's a big city or whether it's a small town. It doesn't matter what place it is. It doesn't matter where you go. Wherever you enter, inquire, investigate, search diligently who in it is worthy. And so you can see the disciples going around town and figuring out who is worthy of them. And we'll see here in a minute what that means. But whoever would be worthy, that's where they would stay. Until their time of ministry in that town or in that city was done, they'd stay in that house. So that means if they came into town and a wealthy person was the worthy one, they'd stay with the wealthy person till they left. If that means they came into town and a poor person was the worthy one, they'd stay with the poor person until they left. It wasn't about their comfort. It was about who received them. Okay? And so they would do that, and well, how would they determine if someone was worthy? Did they carry around Thor's hammer? No, they did not. Okay, look at verse 12 and 13. When you come to a house, so as you're going around the city, as you're going around the town, when you come to that house, salute it. Now that doesn't mean they'd walk up to the house and be like, this is a salutation. It was a typical Israeli greeting. They go to the house and they would have just a general greeting, and we can assume that this would include, this is who we are. We're disciples of Jesus, and Jesus has sent here to tell you some good news about the kingdom. The kingdom of heaven is at hand, and begin to do this ministry. And so, hey, this is who we are. Hi, how you doing? And we're here to talk to you about Jesus. And what would happen from there? You look at verse 13. If the house be worthy, if the people would receive them, then let your peace come upon it. So if you go to some people and you explain who you are, and you give them the greeting, and you're nice, and you just explain everything, and here we are, and what do you say? And if they say, oh yeah, come on in, you are welcome here. Hospitality was a big deal in Israel. And so it was a normal practice. So if you didn't practice hospitality, it was a purposeful decision. I'm not showing hospitality to them because it was so much the cultural norm. So you knew if they weren't hospitable, they had some beef with you. And so if someone said, yeah, come on in, they're worthy, then you say, peace be upon this house. Peace be upon this house. But if they were like, nah, we're good, move on down the road, then let your peace return to you. Don't say, God bless you, dear one. That's what Jesus was saying. They had a mission to accomplish, and they didn't have time to mess around with people who didn't want Jesus. We're going to get into that more here in a second. But notice this too. Their greeting of peace be upon you was a very normal thing, a very normal blessing for Jews. But it would have meant a lot more coming from the disciples of Jesus. Because their blessing was Jesus' blessing. Their blessing was kingdom blessing. Their blessing was the very blessing that every person needed deeply in their life and in their soul. And so if someone was worthy to receive that blessing, that is a big deal. But for someone who says, no, I don't want it, it's not good. And so you might see them. They come to door number 1, and the person says, get out of here. And so they get out of there and go to door number 2, and the person says, come in, and they come in. That's going to the right person. Are you with me? It's like, I think of how I've mentioned God bless you, and it can mean different things. Elizabeth sneezed the other day while we were out, and about 12 different people said God bless you. I was the only one who didn't. I need some husbanding skill class 101, whatever. But it's different. Like out in public, when you say God bless you when a total stranger sneezes, it's a lot different than if you have a relationship with someone that you've established and they know you care about them and you're about to leave them and you look them in the eye and say, God bless you. You see the difference? And that's exactly what we're talking about. That's exactly what it is. And so you picture two different people at work. Here's person number one. You've tried to have a relationship with them. You've tried to talk with them. Tried to just be real with them and be a friend and show them kindness and be real with who you are. Because if you're a disciple of Jesus, your life's all about Jesus. And so you've just tried to be who you are and love them and maybe try to have a conversation with them about Jesus. But if they're like, okay. But here's this person over here and they're kind of interested. I mean, they have questions. They're not ready to just pull the trigger yet, but they're interested and they want to hear from you and they want to have a relationship with you. When you leave them and you look them in the eye, that God bless you means something a little different. That's going to the right person. It takes time to investigate who is the right person. There's all kinds of people to unravel. People's lives are tangled messes. And it takes time to really get to know them in order for the gospel to have an opportunity to help them where they need it the most. People can be a lot like onions and have a lot of layers to them. And you're not getting to the heart of that onion. If onions have hearts, a core, you're not getting to the middle of that onion unless you start peeling things back. And listen, if you don't have a relationship with someone, you aren't getting anywhere in the tangled messes of lives that exist in our world. There's all kinds of crossroads of life to investigate. Your workplace, where you play, where you work out, where you shop, your neighborhood, your school. There's all kinds of crossroads of life to investigate. And here's the deal. You do not know if someone is worthy if you do not go. You do not know who knows Jesus if you don't explore that. We will not know if somebody wants to talk with us if we don't start the conversation. We do not know who wants Jesus if we don't offer him. I have water up here. And I can be like, well, everybody needs water. Our bodies are 60% made of water. Everyone has a need for water. And I guess maybe I should talk to folks and see if they want some water. And I just stand here. And I don't go. I come over here to Mr. J, and he's kind of hot and sweaty. He's been out working in his yard, and I'm just like, hey, how you doing? He's good. He's eyeing my water, right? And I'm nervous as all get out to talk to him about this water I could give him. But he actually sees the water, and he actually kind of wants it, but I'm so nervous. I'm just a flibberty-gibbet. I'm not going to know if he really wants water, and I'm not going to know if he wants water unless I say, hey, you want some water? And he might be like, yeah, I want some water. I've been seeing you holding that water. Give me that water. Go, you know. But if I'm just standing here and I'm just thinking to myself, I'm just too scared. I'm too scared to start the conversation. I'll never know. And it's not like everybody's just overeager. Not everyone would put it straight for me like my friend here and say, yeah, or without me prompting it, say, give me that water, man. Don't you see? I've been mowing the yard. Are you with me? Not everybody's like that. We've got to start the conversation. If we don't ask them, if we don't initiate the conversation, we don't talk to someone about Jesus. Listen, they may see Jesus in your life. They may want what you have. They may be dying for you to ask them. And the only thing that stands in between them and them knowing more about Jesus may be you. Going to the right person is not about our comfort. Well, I'm not comfortable with that side of town. And we've got plenty of that side of town around here that desperately need Jesus. I'm not comfortable with that kind of person. They're wearing a rainbow shirt. They've got a rainbow flag hanging from their window. I'm not comfortable with that style of outreach. I'm not comfortable with talking to people. We do gospel work regardless of our comfort and theirs. Now, we do gospel work with wisdom. We'll see that, as Jesus said. And we believe relationships are important, and that if you have a warm connection with someone, you can get a lot more done than someone you've never met before. Okay, I get all of that, but the bottom line is comfort was not a determining factor in Jesus' life and ministry. And what about this? Hell is quite too uncomfortable for us to worry about our comfort. We do gospel work no matter what, and there's no better way to find the right person than to be a friend. I mean, have an authentic interaction with others and just love people. That's why it's so important to love each other here and to be authentic here, because if we don't have this here, we'll be fake when we leave here. We cannot be fake here. We cannot try to just be polished. And I'm not polished. I try to polish my shoes every once in a while. I'm not a polished individual, and neither should you try to be a polished individual. We just need to do it. The bottom line of our life and ministry together is that we be real and authentic and together, because if we don't have that here, we're not going to have that out there, and people aren't going to listen to us. What we have to offer Americans is amazing. And so your friendship, listen, is much greater than the average friendship. It is so important that they have you as their friend, because your friendship brings so much more than just the average friendship, because your friendship brings Jesus into their life. So what more does someone need if they have you and you're like him? So be the right person and go to the right person. Now, if there's a right person, then there's a wrong person. And there will be those who reject Jesus. There will be those who oppose Jesus. Jesus spoke of this in the Sermon on the Mount. He said, men shall revile you and persecute you and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. So what do you do when you run into the wrong person? This is what you do. You let go of the wrong person. And that's a hard thing to do. You let go of the wrong person. Look at verse 14. And whosoever shall not receive you, nor hear your words, well, what will they do? Gloss over the response? No, we don't want what you have to say. Okay, good, have a good day, sir. No, look at verse 14. When you depart out of that house or city, shake off the dust of your feet. This was a cultural practice in that time. The pious Jew, if he was in a Gentile town or city, whenever they believed the Gentiles were unclean and cursed and polluted people. And so when they would leave that town or that city, they would literally, I don't know why, kilt, tunic, I don't know, they'd shake it off. And they'd shake off the dust of their feet. It's symbolizing whatever dust I picked up on my feet in that town, I'm shaking it off because I have nothing to do with the pollution of that town, and I have nothing to do with the coming judgment of that town and of that place. And so here the disciples were going to Israel, not Gentiles. And if these Israelites, these cities and towns in Israel, if they rejected Jesus and his apostles, they were cursed like the heathen. And as the disciple would shake off the dust of his feet, it would demonstrate Jesus is done here. We are done here. And judgment is coming to these people. You say, why such a hard-nosed approach? Why would Jesus do this? Look at verse 15. He said, verily I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable in the day, for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah. Do we need flashcards about Sodom and Gomorrah, a wicked and a vile place where men were working with men, that which is unseemly, as Romans 1 would say, a place filled of sodomy, of homosexuality, of just barbaric practices and wickedness, a land that God rained fire and brimstone on and turned them all into salt. And Jesus said, the city in Israel that rejects your words from me, Sodom and Gomorrah is going to have an easier time in judgment than that place. Why such a severe judgment? Israel knew God. For them, this would not be a blind leap of faith. The apostles preached a message that they had long anticipated and proved that this message was real with these miracles. For the people hearing the truth in Israel, the evidence was laid out. This was real, and this was true, and the decision to reject was the decision in the face of hard evidence. Those who rejected Jesus would be without excuse. and their eternal destiny hinged on. What will you do with Jesus? What will you do? How will you respond to his disciples? You know what's worse than an ignorant lost person? Someone who may be in an island in the Pacific or somewhere deep in the jungles of Africa or in the mountains in the Himalayas, some tribe that's never heard the name of Jesus, doesn't have a lick of scripture. You know what's worse than that? A lost person in America who has heard the gospel again and again, has access to the gospel on every corner of their town, has Bible places they can buy as many Bibles as they want, and they hear the gospel again and again, and they look Christ in the eye and they say no. Well, if that's you, you need to hear you're lost. Are you the wrong person? You know the evidence for Jesus, but you reject him. I need to warn you that you have one appointment with death, just one. You get one chance at this life, and then you will die. And after this, the judgment. And Revelation chapter 20 says that you will stand before Jesus Christ himself. That if you die in this life, you're going to be in fire. We believe that. We saw the rich man in the Gospel of Luke. Jesus talked about who as soon as he died, he was in hell and lift up his eyes being in torment. But when the day comes, when that final resurrection resurrects all of us who will be with Jesus forever, you will also be resurrected. And your body that you had now will be resurrected, and you will stand before Jesus. And if you have rejected him in this life, he's going to look you in the eye. And he said, I'm looking here, dear one, in the book of life, and I don't see your name. I don't see it. We can only tell you so many times. But believer, perhaps you've run into someone who doesn't want it. What do? You got to warn them. You have to. And I'm not saying I'm being a jerk about it. We've got plenty of that nonsense going around. The Christians. I'm saying be like Jesus about it. If you found the wrong person, you've got to let them go. And they've got to understand you're lost. And when you let them go, you must realize you're not responsible for their response. You pray for them on the way out. When I was in Wiley, I was trying to do a lot of door knocking over a period of a couple of years, and one time I met this lady who was somehow descended from people in the Salem witch trials. And I don't even know, the story is crazy. I remember that, but this lady didn't want Jesus, and I remember just trying to love her. But as I was leaving, I told her John 3:36. I said, you need to hear this, that he that believeth on the Son hath everlasting life, but he that believeth not the Son shall not see life. And as she's telling me, I'm sharing this verse with her, and she's telling me, no. Literally at the door, this older lady telling me, no. I said, but he that believeth not the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of God abideth on him. She needed to hear that. I don't know whatever became of her. I remember writing her a note. I don't know what's happened in her life. She was older. It didn't look like her health was that great. But I pray that she received it. But she needed to hear that. She didn't need me to whitewash, hey, you're okay. She's not okay. And if someone doesn't know Jesus, they're not okay. This so applies to post-Christian America. So many things we could say. We don't have the luxury to play patty cake with people who reject Jesus. We don't have the freedom to be jerks with them, but we must be willing to let go of the wrong person, be willing to tell them the truth. You are lost. This isn't me saying it. You might accuse me of being judgmental upon you for saying this. This is what Jesus said, your maker. And according to him, you are lost. You say, well, what if the wrong person is in close proximity, like family or work? Well, keep loving and living Jesus in front of them. Maybe lay off your gospel guns for a while. We have that, 1 Peter 3. If you have a husband and a wife, they're together, and he's not a believer in Jesus, and she is, or he's not walking with Jesus, and she is, she's to lay off this right here and live the gospel in front of him, and to trust God to work in his life. So you've got to live it, and if God opens the door for you to engage with the gospel, walk through that open door. But if Americans have chosen to reject Jesus, they have chosen. Man has a choice. Now, here's the key. God is still sovereign. Because he knew who would receive Jesus and who would reject Jesus. And he knew a couple years from then, thousands of Israelites would later repent and believe in Jesus. The going was up to the disciples. The results were up to the hearers and God. We're not responsible for people's responses. We can't control what America does and wants. Dear Emmanuel Baptist Church, we are responsible to go with the gospel. We're responsible to investigate through friendships, to find the right people everywhere and let go of the wrong people, and ultimately we trust our sovereign God to do his work. And can I tell you, he is sovereign? I'll just tell you this and I'll get you out of here. As I'm working on this, Pastor Foster calls me, and he FaceTimes me, which is weird. He doesn't just FaceTime. Two men don't often FaceTime. It's weird, Yeah. So he FaceTimes me. I couldn't see him, so he could only see me, so then it was especially weird. But he's telling me I was looking for a welder. I ran into this guy named Jose, and he says he met you a few years ago. I was like, Jose, oh, come on, Jose. It's hit me, all right. Jose. And he gets him on the phone, he starts talking, and I recognize his voice immediately. It was a rough period of time. I'm just trying to figure out what to do. The way I was raised with going with the gospel, some of you understand where I'm coming from. I was raised to you just go out and you go knock doors. That's what you do. And so I tried my best to go reach people. I would spend time with kids. I'd go to the schools and had some fruit that way too. Just spending time eating lunch with kids and got to share the gospel with kids that way. And there's all kinds of ways. But it was one particular summer was a rough summer because I probably knocked 1,000 doors. And you know what? Most of the time it was, I'm good. But Jose was not. He was, but he wasn't. Because recently he was worthy, he was receptive, he wanted to talk because he had just been saved a couple years ago in California, and God saved him out of a lifestyle of drinking and drugs and all this stuff. And it was like, whoa, God's put somebody in my lap who actually wants to talk about Jesus. This is great. But he was going to another church. It was like, well, I ain't stealing a sheep, And we went and talked with him a few times. And listen, there's nothing wrong with having friendships with people from other churches. I'm not going to suggest that in the slight. If you want to play this weird, superficial, oh, you go to that church, we go to this church thing. No, don't do that. So it wasn't about that, but it was like one of those things. Here is someone who actually wants to talk about Jesus. Okay. And so here's Jose talking to Pastor. And Jose tells me, you know what? I've been out of the Word a bit. And evidently he had stopped going to church for a while. This is a man with probably, 4 or 5 kids? 4 or 5 kids, a Hispanic gentleman. I've been out of the Word, I've been out of church. And this man is sitting in the truck of my mentor. And this morning, if he's not there already, is sitting in a service at New Heights Baptist Church in Wiley, Texas, and my mentor who helped me learn what it means to be a follower of Jesus is in his life. How many people, years from now, will we run into who have our master in their life simply because we went? Simply because we went. Be the right person. Go find the right person. Let go of the wrong person and just trust God. Just trust God. Take a few minutes. Miss Evelyn, if you'd come and play softly for a few minutes. Take a few minutes to talk to the Lord about